So if you're thinking about buying a home in Arlington, Texas, this is the video for you. We're going to go from the very beginning, the exploration phase, all the way to closing on the home and actually getting the keys, and actually even beyond that. So if you are, again, thinking about buying in Arlington, this is the video for you. So here's a little roadmap that we're going to take today. We're going to go through our mindset check. This is something that is often overlooked, but it's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of heartache, a lot of money at the end of the day. Because if your mind and heart isn't in it, then it's probably a bad thing to pursue. So we're going to get into that in good detail today. We're going to go into a financial assessment. We're going to go through some expenses, some costs that are often overlooked that will leave a lot of folks, new, especially first-time home buyers, in a bit of financial constraints. And we certainly don't want that, especially if this is our first real estate property. Third thing we're going to go into is how to get pre-qualified, along with talking about some numbers that we're going to break down on the screen so you get an idea of what a monthly mortgage payment looks like and what that can look like in Arlington itself. So we're going to explore that today. We're also going to be looking at finding the right real estate agent. I'm going to give you some examples of what bad real estate agents are, and also really good examples of the good real estate agents out there to give you a good benchmark of how to qualify real estate agents. Because at the end of the day, since you are purchasing a property, you're talking about purchasing something that is valued in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you need a competent real estate agent that can help you navigate those waters. Now we're going to go into then the home search strategy. I'm going to share with you how to actually search for homes the right way, so you're not spending hours and hours and hours doom scrolling through Zillow, through Realtor.com, only to find out that the property is already under contract, getting frustrated because you're putting all these offers, driving around everywhere, and it just doesn't work out, which coincidentally, we're going to be talking about making the right type of offer, and I'm going to show you how to construct it in the actual real estate form. So the contract, the 1 to 4 family contract that real estate agents that you're going to be working with end up filling out on your behalf. So it's important that you understand what it is and what it isn't to give you a better idea of what that looks like. We're going to talk about what to do while you're under contract. So while you're under contract, which on average you're going to be closing in about 25 days once you get under contract, you need to know what to be working on and what not to be working on so you can save yourself some time in a very stressful situation. So regardless of how painless, how stress-free we try to make it, it's still a real estate transaction at the end of the day. And there's a lot of emotion, a lot of stress that comes along with it. So I want to make sure that we're prepared for that along the way. We're going to talk about appraisals and loan finalization, how that actually happens. We're going to go at what point in time you need to have this loan buttoned up in order for you to close on the property. We're going to look at the final steps before we actually close, what you're going to need at closing, how closing happens, and it will make that Arlington home yours at the end of the day. And also we're going to cover what to do after closing. We're going to talk about that in detail. So with that being said, it's time to get after it. Let's look at the very first thing is the mindset check. So what does that mean? What does the mindset check mean for us? Well, the very simple question that we ask all of our clients to ask themselves as we're going through this home buying journey is, if it makes sense for me to buy, will I do it? So let me say it one more time. If it makes sense for me to buy, will I do it? So assuming that you go through the pre-qualification, assuming that you find that home, assuming that you get it at the price that you want, assuming that it makes all the sense in the world and checks off all the check boxes that you yourself set, if it makes sense, will you go through with it? Right? So at least the will. This is essentially pulling you to the very end, as opposed to just making one decision after the next decision after the next decision, only to get maybe to the final stage where it's time to put pen to paper and you're thinking, double guessing yourself or second guessing yourself, thinking, how did I get here? I don't even want to move. I just saw that pretty house off of Zillow. I reached out because I wanted some additional information. This real estate agent called me and it just sounded really, really good to get into the market right now. And all of a sudden I'm filling out pre-approvals. I'm doing all this contract. And now I am looking at the barrel of purchasing a home, right? So first, really have that mindset check, really have it in your mind. If it makes all sense in the world, I'm not saying get into a bad deal. I'm saying if it makes all the sense in the world, Does it make sense for me to buy? Will I actually go through with it? Right? And some things to consider as we go through or as you're going through the home purchasing process. Think about your personal timeline. Think about your family situation. Think about the life changes that are coming up or life changes that that you know are coming up. Of course, we can't predict everything, but really assess your willingness to move forward, right? Do you really want to move, or really can you move, right? So if you're in a new if you're in a new place, in a new city, and you're thinking, man, this just really doesn't feel like a place for me. Well, why would we go under contract and try to purchase a home? Or if you know that you're going to be in a specific situation for a certain amount of years, does it make sense for you to purchase, right? So really have it, if it makes sense for you to buy. So as you go through these thought experiments, if it makes sense for me to buy, will I actually do it? That's a really, really good question. That's going to help you make the decision to move forward or stop right then and there. Because at that point, you haven't lost anything outside of a few brain cells. You haven't lost all this money to gas, all this money for appraisals, all this money for inspections, all this money and time at open houses. So it's really going to help you get clarity. The second thing to do as you're thinking about buying a house in Arlington is get an understanding the financial implications. So it really look at a financial assessment of your personal finances. Arlington, Texas is one of the best places to live. I really deeply believe that. I've been in and around the area since 1998, I believe. That's when my brothers and sisters actually moved to Arlington, Texas. So I grew up in West Texas, out in right around Lubbock, Texas. Shout out Petersburg. And when I moved, we would come and visit quite a bit. And whenever I graduated from the university, I came directly here to the Metroplex, and Arlington is really a place that I've been going to and been very involved with all of these years. Right, so I actually have several homes in Arlington itself. So it's a place that I really like. But with that being said, we're going down the rabbit hole. Let's talk about the financial implications. So whenever you're purchasing property, especially here in Arlington, there's really three things that you need to look at. Number one is the ongoing cost of home ownership. The ongoing cost of home ownership, of course, we have the mortgage payment. We look at that all the time. We'll also understand the maintenance, understand the utilities. There's some additional expenses when you're a homeowner that you might not have when you're a renter. If things break while you're renting, well, you reach out to the landlord, reach out to somebody else, and they'll take care of it. When you're the homeowner, you reach out to yourself. You reach out to yourself and are looking to find a solution. So if a fence needs replacing, well, it's no one else but yourself and possibly the neighbor if they're willing to help you. So understand the ongoing costs are a real thing. So ongoing cost, here I'm talking about mortgage payment, utilities, maintenance, all that fun stuff. The second cost, again, we're talking about financial assessment here, what the financial situation is. The second thing that's going to really impact whether you can actually make this transaction happen or not is the transaction cost. What actually is going to cost you to transact, what it's going to cost you to purchase. So here we broke it down into two different expenses. You have your down payment. So the minimum down payment that, depending on the loan that you're getting, if you're getting an FHA loan, the minimum down payment is 3.5%. If you're getting a conventional loan, the minimum is 3%. So you're looking at your down payment. That's a given. Now, there's also closing costs. So closing costs can be 3 to 4% is typically what I give our clients as a range, so they are prepared when it comes to closing time to have that money ready as well, right? So you have the down payment that we know is going to go towards the equity of our equity in the home, but we also have the closing cost. And closing costs are going to involve title policy. It's going to involve lender fees. It's going to involve appraisals. It's going to involve what are called prepaid. So essentially here in Texas, you're prepaying a certain amount of months for property taxes. You're prepaying a certain amount of months for home insurance. So that's what you're, depending on the time that you're closing in the year, it determines how much prepaid or how many months of prepaid you're going to be paying with property taxes, especially. So again, that's why I quote 3 to 4% you're going to be paying in closing costs alone, right? So we're not talking about if it's a $100,000 home, which we're not going to find in Arlington, that you're going to want to live in. If we're being real, if we're looking at a $100,000 home, you're not looking at just the 3%. You're not looking at just having that 3%. You're looking at 3% plus the closing cost, and that's something that gets lost in translation. So again, the transaction cost is a real thing. And the third component of, again, we're still in the assessment phase. So here, let me share real quick. We're still in the financial assessment. We talked about ongoing costs. We talked about transaction costs. We also need to talk about moving costs. At the end of the day, let's just say you meet the first hurdle of understanding what the ongoing costs are going to be. You meet the transaction cost hurdle, so understanding what the down payment and the closing costs are going to be. Now we need to meet the moving costs. So if you're renting, especially, you are looking at leaving the home or the apartment the way that you found it, or else you're losing your security deposit. And if there's some damages and all that fun stuff, so you could get out of you might be looking at getting out of your lease early, and that's also accompanied with some expense. So there is a cost associated to leaving the place that you're living in, and there's also a cost associated to moving into the new place that you just bought. So we're talking about moving trucks, we're talking about repairing anything within the property, we're talking about updating certain things in the property that you might want updated. So there is an actual cost, there's an actual expense of you moving. So you have those three costs. You have the ongoing cost. You need to understand what those are. You need to understand if you can actually do the transaction, so the transaction cost. And three is going to be budgeting in the moving cost. And we have calculators for all of this, by the way. So if you go to DFWHomebuyerClass.com, DFWHomebuyerClass.com, there is a calculator there that you can absolutely access for your budgeting needs. So you get to see what it would actually cost for you to buy a home. It's going to take this into consideration. So please make sure you check that out. Now, let's talk about getting pre-qualified. One of the most important things that you're going to be doing as you've done the mindset check, as you've done the financial assessment of your personal assessment of, hey, is this something that I am able to do? We need to talk about now, what's the budget for us, in the sense that how much can we get pre-qualified for if we're not purchasing this property in cash? So if we're not purchasing this property in cash, this means that we're going to go and get a loan from a lender, get a loan from a bank, get a loan somewhere. So getting pre-qualified is extremely important, because if we do not have a pre-qualification letter that a lender can give us within a couple of minutes of you submitting your application, let's be real, a couple of hours of you submitting your application, if we don't have a pre-qualification letter accompanied with the offer that we make to a home that we love, or a homeowner, to a homeowner on the home that we love, then we're not going to be taken serious. So if you're looking to buy a house, you will be accompanying your offer, whatever it happens to be, and we're going to look at Arlington properties here shortly. You're going to be accompanying that offer with a pre-qualification letter, letting the homeowner know that, hey, I have the financial means through the loan that I'm about to pursue. And a pre-qualification is super simple to obtain. You will just reach out to a lender of your choice, and or a preferred lender from your real estate agent, whoever you happen to be working with, and you would be submitting your financial information, which basically they're going to look at how much assets you have in the bank. So they're going to need to know what down payment you're working with. They're going to look at your credit score to see what type of credit readiness you happen to have. They're going to look at your debt to income. So essentially they're going to see how much you owe versus how much you're making. That's the debt to income ratio. That's very, very important. That's going to dictate how much you can actually borrow from the bank. So then you're going to, once you get pre-qualified, you may find out that, hey, I am pre-qualified up to $400,000. Well, now you have at least the ceiling that you're working with. Now, I don't encourage you to go out, if you get a $400,000 pre-qualification, don't try to go out there and spend all $400,000. That's essentially your max. I recommend always at least giving yourself a 10% cushion at the top. So going a rung down and not try to max out that $400,000 pre-qualification. So you don't have to spend everything that you're eligible for, right? Simply because you got that credit card and you get access to $10,000 doesn't mean that you should go out there and get all $10,000 at once. That's not the play that I encourage our clients to make. Now, we also need to talk about the finding the right real estate agent. Finding the right real estate agent is essentially comes down to two things: is having a real estate agent that knows real estate, period, point blank, and knows the real estate market that you're going into. So in this particular case, we're talking about Arlington. Arlington is right there, one street over from me. So I happen to live in Mansfield, and I've been in and around Arlington for way more than half of my life. So I know Arlington. I know when sublet was just basically a gravel road. I know the troubles of that. I know when 360 was still a place. It wasn't the super highway that it is now, or the tollway that it is now. Is a place where people would go and dump trash out there. I'm not saying we did that. No, we didn't do that at all. But I do know, like, just going down those roads where it was formerly, I don't want to say it was a dumpster. It was not a dumpster, but people would go out there because it was like more of a rural area, and people would go and dump their trash. So understanding the real estate market, understanding the space that you're trying to buy in is super important. So whenever you're looking for your real estate agent, they need to have at least that information at the ready. But even more than that, even if they have nothing to do and no idea of what the real estate happens to be in the area that you're looking to purchase in this particular Arlington, they need to know real estate, period, point blank. They need to know the contracts. They need to know the amendments. They need to know the clauses and protections for you, because this is very important. We're talking about thousands of dollars that are at stake if they get it wrong. And that's a big thing. So when it comes to real estate, something to understand is that of the 2 million real estate licenses out there in the United States, at least half of them have sold one transaction or less last year. So let me say that again. Of the real estate licenses out there, at least half of them have sold one transaction or less last year. That is astounding. So I really want you to vet out the real estate agents that you're working with. I really want you to get familiar with the real estate agent, because simply because they have a real estate license does not mean that they are capable of selling a home successfully. I know technically the real estate license gives them the opportunity to, but it certainly doesn't give them the knowledge, right? So that's something super important. Check them out. I have an entire video on the questions to ask real estate agents. So if you want to check that out in our YouTube channel, you can absolutely do that as well. If you want to work with us, so the DFW Homeowner Group, we sell a lot of real estate every single day. So feel free to reach out to our information is going to be linked down below if you want to check us out. Now let's talk about the home strategy. Let's talk about the home search strategy. So let's start looking at homes in Arlington right now. So in Arlington at the moment, there's over 1,100 properties available for sale at an average of $400,000. Now this is skewed a little bit because it includes every type of real estate. So I'm only going to look at single family residence and see what that looks like. Now, what I like to do whenever I am showing a new market to our clients is doing the exact same exercise that you're seeing right now. I want to move myself for a quick second up here. So to get access to this, all you have to do is go to JaimeResendiz.exprealty.com. And you're going to see this exact same thing. So I want to show you that there's 600. So of the listings that you saw, about half of them were, many of them were multifamily. A good amount of them commercial as well, but there's about 620 homes available for sale in Arlington right now. So what I like to do is I like to bracket them based off of cost, based off of price. That's going to let you know the pockets of real estate that you might be more interested in. So what I do is I go to set a maximum at the beginning. So I like to give those individuals an idea. If we are pre-qualified up to $300,000, I like to show the inventory available without any additional filters, just to show how many homes are available at this certain price range. So if you have a pre-qualification letter in hand that says, hey, I'm eligible, I'm able to purchase a home in Arlington for $300,000, well, this is how many available options are available for you. So there's 132 homes right now that are available right now. Now, you're going to notice that the concentration of those is going to be in the central part of DFW. So in between I-30 and I-20. That's where the concentration, that's where the bulk, the homes that are built in the 60s, 70s, that's where a big bulk of them are going to be and are going to be at that price. So you're going to see all the homes right here but also we can just scroll down just so you see the different types of homes. All of these that you're seeing here, that are, a lot of them are converted garages, they're going to be right in here. These are the type of real estate that you're going to be seeing. And as you get going a little bit higher, you see some remodeled homes. Remodeled homes, and those remodeled homes are going to be in here. But you get to see available real estate around here. So we're going to just click through just to give you an idea of the type of real estate that's around. Oops. Okay, so that's under 300,000. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to bracket it several more times, but right now we're going to at least do it one more time. For the sweet spot, if you're looking to move to Arlington, your sweet spot's going to be up to 500,000. So 3 to 500,000 is going to give you a ton of options for what you might be looking to do. Now, you're going to see a lot more options populate towards the south of 20. Right down here, you're going to see way more options than you had before. And you start seeing some north of Arlington, like in the Viridian area, open up as well, because Viridian is more of a new construction. All of these right here were new construction homes, and there's still actually some new construction available right now in Viridian. But the higher price points are going to be north of 30, and also down here as you get closer to Mansfield. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like. Okay, now what we're going to do now is we're going to bracket one more time, and I'm going to show you what 500 to 750 looks like, and then we're just going to call it, because after that you're going to see some million-dollar properties. Now you're going to notice that most of them are going to be here towards the lake, and then there's going to be pockets here in between. If you're looking to get $500,000 to $700,000, this would give you access into the Viridian. This would give you access to more of the northern part of Arlington. Now, if you're looking for the luxury space, if this is you, then you're going to be very pleased with the type of real estate that you can buy for your money. So you're going to see most of the luxury up here near Viridian. So you can see the $1 million homes. You're going to see newer homes right up there. And you're also going to see some lake homes up here to give you an idea of what you're able to purchase for the price. And then here, just some pockets of new construction down here closer to Mansfield. I pass by this builder every single, I pass by this gated community every single morning. All right, so those are the homes, those are the pockets. That's the type of real estate that you can expect to purchase. Now, again, I go through that breakdown just to give you an idea of the type of real estate available to you. So depending on your pre-approval, depending on what your needs are, of course, you're going to go in and apply some different filters: the number of beds, the number of baths, the amount, the size of the lot. So you're going to apply way more filters than what I have here. I just want to give you price points to give you an idea of where the type of real estate is that you might be looking for. So if you're looking for luxury, you're not going to find it here in East Arlington. You're just not going to. You're not going to find it even in the south part of Arlington. So if you're looking for luxury, you see it right there, but also south of Debbie and south of Debbie is basically where you're going to see a lot more luxury. Right around Country Club Drive is where you're going to see more luxury, and right in through here north of Broad Street, which is Mansfield at this point. So just to give you, again, an idea, if you're looking to purchase in Arlington, what type of real estate and where you would actually find it. Now, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this real quick. Let's talk about a mortgage payment. This is something that I get a question a lot on. So I want to give you a really good framework to use. This is something that will apply to you. I just want to make sure that I'm not in the way. I don't think I'm in the way here, but if I am, let me know in the comment section. I want to give you the numbers to use here for those of you that are purchasing, right? So oftentimes we're thinking, well, what's the monthly mortgage payment? And we get it to a calculator and we see all these numbers and we get frustrated and confused and we don't necessarily know what's going on. So I want to demystify that for you. So for our purposes today, we know that we can get a home for $400,000 pretty comfortably. So that's what we're going to put $400,000 to have something even. Now, for the purposes of our of our numbers here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume that we're going to put 5% down. I'm not going to go up to 20%. It's going to give me an opportunity to explain what's called PMI and MIP. So PMI is private mortgage insurance, which is tied to conventional loans, and MIP is essentially the same thing, but for FHA loans. Now, whenever you purchase a property and you put less than 20% down, you're paying mortgage insurance, and that mortgage insurance is essentially an insurance policy from the lender that in the event that you default, they're able to recoup their money back, or maybe not lose as much as if they didn't have this insurance. So essentially, you're paying insurance to the lender for that. So if you're putting 5% down, that is below that 20% threshold. So you are going to be paying mortgage insurance, and I'll give you a realistic expectation of what that would actually be monthly. All right, so let's just say that home is $400,000. Your down payment is $20,000. Now, your loan is most likely going to be 30 years, and your interest rate right now is, you see the average interest rate at the moment, which is going to be 7%, but let's just go with 6.85%. Now, if you want to see the national mortgage, the average rate, then just Google it. Just go to Google and type in average mortgage interest rate today, and it'll give you the bank rate number, which is gonna break it down for you. So we're gonna put 6.85%. We're gonna say that it's the zip code. It's not gonna matter all that much for us. It's just going to guesstimate the property taxes, but we're gonna get a little bit more exact than that. So we're gonna say our credit score is great or decent, and our property taxes per month. This is a number that we need to get right. This is a number that we absolutely need to get right, because we're talking about Texas. We're talking about Texas having some of the highest property tax rates in the country. So what that means for you is that you're paying a lot in property taxes, and you there's a big difference between paying $263,000 per month versus what it's actually going to be. So I'm going to show you how to calculate that right now. So you're just going to go to the Tarrant County website, and I already pulled up the tax estimator, which is basically going to take into account up to 5 different numbers. One is going to be the county, so Arlington is in Tarrant. 2 is going to be the city, so we're talking about the city of Arlington. 3 is going to be the ISD, so the school system, and then potentially it's going to include up to 2 additional numbers, and that's going to be your hospital network. So JPS, John Peter Smith, I believe is what JPS stands for, John Peter Smith Health Network, and then Tarrant a college system of sorts. So here we're talking about Tarrant College. If we're in Dallas, there you're looking at the Dallas College Network. If you were up in the north part of DFW, you're talking about Collin College. So here again, it's up to 5 numbers that are going to be roped in to make your property tax rate. And we're going to just use that to give you an idea of what it would actually cost you. So again, county, city, ISD, and I'm blanking, hospital network, and the college network. So for us, we're just going to I just put in $100,000 as a property value just to get us what the actual rate would be. And you see that if it's a property of $100,000, it's $2,183, which is basically, if you translate that to percentages, it's about 1.19%. So I'm going to round up. Let's just say 2.19. So 2.19 is what the property tax rate is. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pretend that this is a $400,000 home. So we're going to type this in real quick just to get an actual number, so we don't need to do the math. So if you have a home that has an assessed value of $400,000, which in this particular case, just as a heads up, what we're putting in here is we're pretending that the home is $400,000 that we're buying. So this is going to be the market value. So the assessed value, what the property is going to, what the county appraisal district is going to assess your property value at, is most likely going to be less than $400,000. Essentially, you're going to be taxed on less. But for our purposes today, we're going to go with the higher number, which is the market value, just to play it conservatively. So we're going to say that the assessed value is the same as a property value, the market value, which is not going to be the case. But in this particular case, we're looking at 8742. 8742. So if we divide that out by 12, that's $728. Now again, this is a conservative number. In reality, it's going to be about 650 or so. But I want to show you a realistic conservative number as opposed to just give you a pie in the sky number that doesn't exist. So there's a big difference between that property tax rate that you saw of 200 and whatever and 728. There's a huge difference, and we need to understand what property taxes do to your payment. So that's why I go through the time of showing you exactly where these numbers come from, so you're better equipped to purchase here in Arlington, because Arlington has a higher property tax rate when you compare it to the country. So if you're looking at comparing where you're going to relocate to as an example, and you're considering Arlington, I want to give you the exact math that applies to you right now. Homeowners insurance for a home of this value, I usually just quote about $200 for a home of this value. Now, home insurance's premiums have just gone up. They're just insane. Some insurers aren't doing it. So I'll give you an example. Right now, we're closing on a home. We already closed on a home up in North Fort Worth, where it's the same builder. They're 3 houses apart, and State Farm issued an insurance policy on our clients in one home. This was about a month ago. And then just right now, just yesterday, we were actually going back and forth with my new client that was 4 houses next door in the exact same community, in the exact same street, 4 houses apart. State Farm refused to issue a policy. They wouldn't even quote him, which is insane, right? So over here we had his average, his policy, I think it was a brand new home, so it was like 100 and maybe 112 or so a month. Over here, they would not issue a policy. That's how crazy this home insurance market is, but let's continue. Now, since we're paying less than 20% down, so we're putting less, we are going to be paying PMI, so mortgage insurance. So for mortgage insurance, I'm going to put about 125, which is going to be about a 0.5% more than what we would get. So right here, I'm essentially quoting 0.5%. 0.5%. I think I said that weird. 0.5%. 0.5%. So I'm going to put additional PMI here, and then the HOA fees. If you buy into an HOA, you won't be paying your HOA fee in the mortgage payment. This is something you pay at the beginning of the year. All right, so let's calculate this real quick. Actually, let's be a little bit more conservative here, because I can't do that math on the fly. So we're just going to let it fly. Okay, so here's what we got. We got about $35.68 is our monthly payment if we buy a $400,000 home. This is a realistic, as of today, factoring in the interest rate, factoring in the property taxes. As of today, your monthly mortgage payment, if you were to buy a $400,000 home, putting 5% down, you're looking at paying $35.68. That is your cost. So if you go back here, wherever I'm at, right here, I'm taking in, as you're doing your home search, this will give you a good understanding of, if you're looking at homes and you're seeing, wow, these $400,000 homes look nice. I wonder what the monthly mortgage payment is on this. Just copy this. This is literally the exact math. The only thing that when you're watching, the only thing that you're going to want to do when you're watching this video is hit that like button. Don't forget that. But also change the interest rate. For the most part, the rest of this is going to stay the same. So again, only if you're looking at this 400,000. Now, if you're going higher, then there's some different things are going to change. You're of course, going to be paying more in home insurance premium. So just be mindful of that. Okay, here's what we're going to do. What we're going to do now is we're talking about making an offer. So when you're making an offer, I think the best thing to do is to show you what a contract looks like. So when you're making an offer, there's so many different things to consider. We're going to be breaking it down to 3 things. Number 1 is the price, 2 is the terms, 3 is contingencies. So number 1 is the price being essentially what you're offering. Two, the terms is who's offering to pay the title policy. Am I getting a home warranty? Am I doing who's paying the survey? Like, these are terms. These are things that you are going to be negotiating. Now, in contingencies, this is if you have a home that you need to sell before you buy. Well, that's a contingency. That's going to change the appeal of your offer. So as an example right now, I have clients that I literally today, just before I pressed go live, I pressed publish listing. We put a property, beautiful property, almost brand new with 10 acres. We just put that on the market today. Now, here's the thing. My clients want to buy a bigger piece of land. So we're looking at 24 acres or so, I believe. So we're looking at that piece of land that we've already identified we want it. But here's the thing. Whenever we go and try to contract on that piece of land, well, we're going to need to have a contingency here that we can't purchase this property until we get this property sold. So that's a contingency, right? So when we're making that offer, we need to put in all of these variables into place so we have a good chance of actually getting our offer accepted. And that's why it's so important that you're working with a qualified professional that has done this at least more than once in a year. Now, I'm not trying to throw shade. At some point, we all started somewhere, but at the end of the day, I'm looking out more for you than anything else. You want to work with a qualified professional that is able to put these deals together, that's able to get you the best possible price, the best possible terms, and the best possible contingencies if it ever came down to that, right? So let's talk about the offer in and of itself. Now, we're going to look at the big items here. This is not a contracts class, even though I teach this for my real estate agents. So we have 200 plus agents that I get to teach pretty consistently. So this is not a contract class, I repeat. So don't treat it as that. I'm going to give you the big bulk. I'm going to, you're still responsible for reviewing this. How do I change the layout? Maybe I should just remove myself. Okay. You're still responsible for reading this contract yourself, understanding this contract yourself. This is not legal advice. This is not me representing you unless you call me and we put you in a buyer representation agreement, then I will represent you. But until then, this is a guy off of YouTube trying to be helpful. All right, so this the beginning is pretty self-explanatory. You have who is a buyer, who is a seller. You're talking about the property that you're purchasing. And here, with the exclusions, is something important. If you see something while you are touring that property that you want to stay, make sure that let me rephrase that. Anything that you saw within your home search and is affixed to the property, meaning that it's nailed in, it's screwed in, then that is assumed that it stays unless they specifically specify that it doesn't. So this is where the exclusions would go into place. So as an example, if they have an exclusion where the chandelier that you saw whenever you saw the home was going to be excluded, then they would need to put chandelier here, or if they didn't, then it's going with the house. All right, so sales price. So this is what you're offering. So this is where you tell the homeowner how much you're going to be putting down in cash and how much you're going to finance. It's going to tell a lot to your clients. It's going to let them know how much cash most likely you have. So it's going to give them an idea of, well, what the likelihood of this loan is going to be. If maybe the home buyer, like you as a home buyer, maybe you're giving off signs that I have just enough for the down payment and the closing cost. So this kind of, and if that's the case, that's the case. But that's why you need to be working with a qualified professional, a real estate professional that can be able to tell that story, tell that narrative, present your offer in the most favorable light. So there's no doubt that you're capable of purchasing the home, and not have any doubt in the seller's mind that this is going to go all the way to close. Now, if there's any leases on the property, most of the time it's going to be residential leases that are in place. That would be disclosed there. And then we're talking about the earnest and option money or termination money. So here's two distinct things to know. Earnest money is, think of it like a deposit. Think of you putting some money down. I shouldn't say down because it can be interpreted as down payment, which is not. Earnest money is putting a deposit. Think of it this way. You're letting the homeowner know, hey, I am serious about buying this house. And I am going to show you how serious I am by putting this amount in earnest money. So I'm going to put several $1,000s into earnest. Now, how much is earnest money? Legally, it's not required. Technically, it's not required, but it is common from the homeowner's perspective and the listing agent to see 1% of the value of the home. So if this home is $400,000, then we're looking at $4,000 in earnest money. Now, this money gets credited to you at closing. This money is, assuming you go all the way to the closing table, it gets credited to you at closing. Also, if you get out of this contract legally and contractually without breaking it, this gets returned back to you, right? So that's a big difference. Now, the only way this doesn't get given back to you is if you break the contract. If you break the contract and don't abide by the contract and ultimately are not moving forward and you broke that contract, then you are not entitled to this money. So you actually lose that $4,000 in this particular case. Option money, so option fee over here, so termination option. So the option fee is a little bit different. The option fee is you paying for the option to have this home under contract. So with your option money, your option fee, you're looking at it varies, $100 to $200 for a certain amount of days of option, where you can get out of the contract for any and all reasons. So what's most common is about 7 days in option period, where during this option period, you're going to be doing an inspection on the property to get a full breakdown of what the condition of the home actually is. So that is that option fee. Notice that it's a fee that is credited to you at closing, but in the event that you get out of that contract, even contractually, you do not get access to it. So it's an investment that you're making. So that's the cost of doing business. So you're not going to get that option money back. All right, so that's what it's essentially telling you. Now, the title policy and survey. The title policy is essentially an insurance that when you buy this home, you are actually going to be the legal owner of the home, and you're getting a title insurance or title policy to ensure that. That is what we're talking about here. Now, in the event that there's a question of who the actual homeowner was to begin with, then that's when you're talking about, hey, Rex and the Rafter, thanks for dropping by. I just saw your comment. In the event that lost my spot here, sorry. In the event that there's a question about the title policy, then the insurance that you got, the title policy that you got whenever you closed on the property, will actually indemnify you from that. So you are assured or given the provisions that, hey, you are the rightful owner. So the title policy is going to cost several $1,000s. So property of this value of $400,000, let me do the math real quick, would probably cost you about $3,000. So that's negotiated. Who's going to pay for that, seller or buyers? And depending on the market, you're going to see if it's a buyer's market or seller's market, it's one or the other that's going to essentially be offering to pay for that. And that's where, again, you're looking at working with the real estate professional that can put these deals together and knows when to press on the gas and when to kind of lay off. And then the survey is essentially a piece of paper that shows what you're actually purchasing. This survey is, if you don't have a survey, you're looking at about $600 to get a survey, and the lender will be asking for this. So if you're a homeowner right now, make sure that you have a survey. Make sure you don't lose that survey because it costs a lot of money. And if you're a buyer, well, just hope that the homeowner has it and that the title company will actually accept it. So the survey, again, is essentially letting you know how much property you're buying, where the improvement, aka the home, sits on that property. Essentially, is a little roadmap, a little map of the property boundaries and what you're purchasing. Now, you're also going to be you're going to be calling out if it's in an HOA, if you want. Let's talk about seller's disclosure for a quick second. So seller's disclosure, whenever you buy a house here in Texas, you are legally required to receive the seller's disclosure. So let me say that in a different way, more from the seller side. A seller is legally required to give you or to share a seller's disclosure, fill out a seller's disclosure. That's according to the Texas Property Code. Now, if it's a owner occupant, they are going to fill it out a little bit better than if it's an investor. An investor is most likely going to say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And an owner occupant, well, they can't really get away with saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, because they lived in that home. Now, what is the seller's disclosure? That is where the property owner discloses everything that they know about that property, everything that they have, everything that they think that property has, whether it has a sprinkler system, whether it has ceiling fans, whether it has working HVACs, whatever the case may be. So it lets you know what it has of in the property itself, and also what the condition is. Like if things are broken, like there's foundation issues, like anything that they can think of, that property has to be disclosed. And if they withhold something, they are liable they're opening themselves up for some liability, aka for a lawsuit, in the event that something goes crazy. All right, so we're gonna keep going. I think that's all I want to show you, at least for now. The rest of this is gonna be pretty specific to the deal that you're trying to make. Now there is, again, if you go to dfwhomebuyerclass.com, there's a full breakdown where I go into all of the offer, all of the amendments, everything that's going to be included in the offer itself. So let's talk about when you're under contract. So, I like to break down the transaction into 4 main weeks. So whenever you go under contract, you're looking at about 25 days before closing. So you're looking at 25 days for a close. That gives the title company plenty of time to do its thing and give you the title policy. And that gives your lender plenty of time for them to approve you for the loan fully. So simply because you got pre-approved does not mean that you got approved. Unfortunately, there's a lot more that goes with that. So what I like to do is I like to break up the transaction into 4 quadrants, or really 4 weeks. The first week is going to be full of inspections. So once you get under contract, we're going to put an inspector in there. We're going to get a full report, and we're going to see the condition of the home. And at that point, we have several things to consider. Number one is, are we going to keep moving forward? If the answer is yes, awesome. Is there something in that report that we will ask the home seller to fix, and or is there something in that report that we'll be asking for credit back? So as an example, in our most recent transaction that we just got under contract with right now, we got the inspection report back, and for us, there was some things that we knew about the property. We knew that the condition of it was going to need a little bit of work, but instead of asking for them to repair this, and this, and this, we just asked for a credit. So we just asked, okay, we'll take care of this, but we're going to need $2,500 of credit, and we'll take care of the items ourselves. And it was approved, and we got that additional, essentially, we saved $2,500 so we can go out and repair what needed to repair. So that's what happens in the first week. You're in the option period. So if you want to move forward, you can, and maybe negotiate again if it's warranted. Or if you decide, hey, based off of this report, it's a little bit beyond my comfort level, so I'm just going to not move forward. So you get out of that contract within that first week. So that's the first week. It's going to be the week of inspections. The second week is the week of getting qualified. So this is where you're going to provide your basic information over the title company so they can get to work on their end, which their responsibility is to look at the property itself and give you a title commitment, essentially saying that, hey, based off of our preliminary search, we're going to actually be able to issue you a title policy on this property. So it's not going to be a big issue. That's what the title company is doing. But really the heavy lifting for you as a home buyer is going to be with your lender. This is where you're going to provide the tax returns, the income statements. If you're a home business owner, you're going to be providing information of where you work, and as much as you possibly can think of, you're going to be asked for that. So make sure that you have your bank statements ready, your tax records, your W-2s, 1099s. You have that ready to go because you will be asked for that. So that's asked for that, and that's going to be in week 2. Week 3 is, I call that conditions week. So in conditions week is essentially where, let me back up to week 2. Week 2, that's when the appraisal gets ordered by your lender. So the appraiser appraisal is going to be an independent party that goes out to the property, an independent appraiser that's going to go out to the property and see what the value of the home is, and then report back to the lender to let them know, hey, this property has met appraisal, meaning what you have that property under contract for, that property is actually worth it. If that happens, great. If it doesn't, then that's going to be an issue. So if you're under contract for $400,000 and the appraisal, which again is reporting back to the bank, says, hey, this property that Jaime is under contract for $400,000, it's not worth that much. It's worth $350,000. So now you have that delta. What happens to that delta of $400,000 versus $350,000? Well, if you love that home, so if I love that home, I have the full right to cover the difference and say, okay, well, if you're going to lend me up to $350,000 or the value of the home you think is $350,000, I'm going to make up the rest. I'm going to pay those additional $50,000 because I love that property so much. That's one option. A second option is to go to this homeowner and say, okay, well, based off of this, it's actually not worth that much money. I know I'm under contract for this, but I'm going to need you to reduce it all the way down to the appraised value so we can close on this loan. And that has happened. Like, that happens all the time. So again, understanding this transaction is so pivotal. Understanding and working with the real estate agent professional that knows this is instrumental. So we do that. Most of the time we get this to happen. So we get this, we get the seller to back off to the price that we need. In many cases, though, as well, we do see some medium, some meeting in the middle somewhere, right? So we can continue moving forward. But anyway, that appraisal gets ordered. It's going to take about 3 to 5 business days for that to come back. So that's week 2. So that's when approval week happens, or you're providing as much as you can to get approved. Week 3 is conditions week. So once your lender collects all this information, they're going to send it off to their underwriters, to essentially their people, to provide your file over to the underwriters that are checking anything and everything and make sure that the lender is going to be able to lend on this property. And oftentimes what happens is there's certain conditions. So you're going to be asked to do, let's just say, provide a letter stating the properties that you have here in Arlington are not part of an HOA. You have to attest to that. And I know it sounds like a very specific request. It's because that's a request that I get every single time. And there's some additional conditions that happen, and you're going to just be working through those. So that's what happens on week 3 most of the time. Week 4 is when you're really getting close to the closing table. So here's an example. Think of this as week 2. Think of this as week 3. So the appraisal and loan finalization. So you're working through the conditions, and then you go into week 4, which is the closing table. So this is where we're talking about when we need to have the funds ready to go so we can close on the property. When we need to have the utilities set up. So we know that when we buy this property, we're going to have all the lights on and the water's working so we can move right in. Now, when you close on the property, this is where you get the final day. Once your loan is approved and you actually close on the property, that's when you get the keys, and then you're able to move in at any point in time. Now, I have a full breakdown on what to do after you move in. So I want to make sure that you have access to that. It will be linked somewhere, probably in the description, but in this YouTube channel, you're going to see what to do after you've closed on the property. So you have an idea of what needs to happen, because there's still several different things that you need to do. Number 1 is file your homestead exemption. Homestead exemption is going to save you thousands of dollars in property taxes. Number 2, you're going to want to protest your property taxes every single year. I'm actually working on another video right now where I have an updated version on how to protest your property taxes so you're not overpaying. If you're thinking about moving to Arlington, please feel free to reach out. If you want to connect with us directly, our information is linked down below. Now, also, if you want to go through this class, but in a way more detail and have access to all of the resources, all the tools that we offer, just go to dfwhomebuyerclass.com and you're going to be able to access everything right there. But anyway, outside of that, I hope you have a fantastic day. Hopefully, I get to be your neighbor at some point in time. If you're looking to move to Arlington, that would be pretty cool. See you on the next one. Bye.